Hi, I'm Brent Michael Phillips from MIT, and I'm here to talk to you today about how to reconnect yourself to the quantum field. So what does that mean? Well, I hope you've watched some of the other videos in this series. In the last video, I used the metaphor of the toothpaste in the tube. What does that mean? Well, your connection to the quantum field is determined by how much consciousness is inside your physical body. And so when we are born as tiny little infants, we are fully connected to the quantum field. Our bodies are completely filled with consciousness. But then we grow up. We learn to talk, we learn to walk, we develop an ego. We experience pain and fear and setbacks and hate and all the other things that happen in life. And little by little, it squeezes the consciousness out of our body. Every trauma, every setback, every painful experience, every illness, every fight squeezes a little more consciousness out of your body. The problem is, just like toothpaste in the tube, it's a lot easier to squeeze it out than it is to get it back. And that's why I created this video to talk to you about how do we do this? How do we get the toothpaste back into the tube? And why does it matter? So first, I want to give you a better understanding of how this consciousness in your body works and how it reconnects us to the quantum field. What it comes down to is pretty simple, actually. That the more connected you are to the environment around you, the empty space, the more powerful you are. Why? When you're very connected to the environment, your actions create results. As an example, let's imagine that you jump into a swimming pool, and I'm on the other side of the swimming pool. If you are moving your body around inside the swimming pool, I will feel it, right? Of course I will, because you are connected to the water. Your body is connected to the water in the pool. And when you move your body, the water moves. And then the water comes and I feel it. In other words, your action is having result. You're exerting energy and effort, but it has an effect on the environment. It creates something real. Why? You're very connected to the water when you're in the swimming pool. And it's really that simple. On the opposite side, let's imagine that you're in the spacesuit floating around in outer space. Now, if you're floating around in the void of outer space, you can thrash and flail and kick and spin all you want, but it creates no effect. Why? In outer space, there's nothing you're connected to. You can flail your arms and all it's going to do is make you tired and burn up your oxygen. You can exert enormous effort over a long period of time and it creates little or no result. That's what happens in our lives when we live from the mind, when we squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube, when we're traumatized, when we're in pain. We can exert huge amounts of effort, make sacrifices, work. You can be incredibly smart, have a big education, live in the right place, know lots of people. And all those manipulative actions add up to very little. Why? You're not connected to the world around you. You are disconnected from this quantum field, this life force energy. Now, to be fair, most of us are somewhere in the middle. We're not fully connected like we are in the water, but we're not fully disconnected like we are in outer space. Most of us live our lives as if we're in atmosphere, right? Air. And so if we're in the same room together and I move my body around, you probably won't feel much, right? You probably won't feel the air move unless you're really close to me. But again, the model, the metaphor is not perfect, but I want to give you a sense of it. So when you're disconnected from the quantum field, the actions you take deliver little result. But the more connected you can get, the more powerful the results you will have. You can take small actions and they deliver huge results. Everyone who has had success with their business knows about this. You'll spend years and years toiling away, exerting enormous effort, sacrifice, working through weekends, holidays, little or no result. And then by coincidence, by happenstance, you get a break. Something happens and it launches you forward. I know that for years and years when I started my business, when I was a beginning healer, I charged just $88 an hour for private sessions. And I could barely find anyone to book a session. I had this enormous scarcity about money and time and prosperity. And even though I was pretty good at it when I started, I had a heck of a time filling my schedule. And then years later, after I started working with my late mentor Carl, doing the quantum field entrainment, the beaming, the movement feedback holography, the study of awakening, this third generation self-improvement technology. I struggled for a little while longer, and then one day I got invited to my first telesummit in 2010 when I had no idea what they were. And I made over $30,000 from a 1-hour interview. So the point is, when you get very connected, even a small effort, a small action can deliver an enormous result. Now, I'm hoping you want to learn more. I really am. I'm hoping you're excited about this. So if you want to learn more, if you want me to keep going on about this quantum field and how to get yourself reconnected, take 1 second now, go click like, go click subscribe, smash the button a couple times. Give it a good workout. Awesome. And as a thank you for that, here's a really, really cute picture of some awesome animals. There we go. Very cool. All right. So what happens when we're disconnected? Well, again, you squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube. Every trauma, every negative experience, every negative thought squeezes consciousness out of your body. And the way we get it back in is through quantum field entrainment or beaming and through movement. Now, I want to emphasize that movement is different than exercise. Exercise is great. I think exercise is really important, but movement is a different thing. Movement is done to reconnect yourself to the quantum field, to get that toothpaste back into the tube, that there are parts of your body that literally have no consciousness anymore. We got to stuff the consciousness back in. And unfortunately, traditional techniques and processes don't work very well. No amount of talk therapy or coaching is going to do it on its own. No amount of subconscious work with a hypnotist or an NLP person is going to do it either. Heck, energy healing won't do it either. Now, I'm not opposed to these things. I practice and use all these techniques. They're incredibly valuable. They just won't crack this nut. The only thing that does work is movement in conjunction with someone that knows how to tune the quantum field. So to give you a better idea of what we're talking about, most of us in the modern world are pretty embodied in our hands and fingers. So I don't have a very hard time moving my fingers independently, do I? No, most of us don't. Especially because I've been typing on computers for several decades. So I can move the fingers on my hand independently pretty easily. Now I want you to try to do that with your toes. See if you can move your toes independently the same way you can move your fingers. Almost nobody can. For most of us, your toes will move as a group. They go together. You're going to have a heck of a time moving your toes independently the same way you can move your fingers. Why is that? Here's a hint. It's not anatomy. Did you know that in terms of the muscles and bones and tendons and ligaments and all that, our hands and our feet are almost identical? There is no anatomical reason why you can't move your toes independently. But there is a neurological reason, a spiritual reason. It's pretty simple. The feet are one of the first places that we squeeze out the consciousness. So when you squeeze the consciousness out of your toes, you can't feel them anymore. And when you can't feel them, you cannot move them independently. So the toe process is one of many different movements I learned from my mentor Carl to help get the toothpaste back in the tube. But that's the important thing. If you can feel it very clearly, move it independently, it's embodied. If you can't, that's where you've mapped it out. You've squeezed the toothpaste out of the tube, and we got to find a way to get it back in. Now, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is I know how to do it, and there's other people too. There are some people that know how to do this. There are some, especially yoga, Pilates, dance instructors who know how to do this. The trouble is they're a small minority. And you might find a good teacher who can teach you this. My mentor Carl learned this from a dance instructor. But they're kind of hard to find because, again, I'm not opposed to Pilates or yoga. I think it's great stuff. I've spent a lot of my life doing Pilates and yoga and even dance. So it's awesome stuff. But the way most teachers teach it and the way most people practice it, it does not refill you with consciousness. It's more about technique and exercise. And again, that's great. Technique is great. Exercise is great. It just won't crack this nut. But you might find a good yoga teacher, a Pilates teacher, a movement instructor, a dance instructor who knows this. And it's interesting, what I have found The only people I have found that really seem to know this outside of the spiritual world, people like my mentor Carl, are some people that train actors. There are some acting teachers who use movement exercises who actually kind of figure some of this out. So they're out there, but it's pretty rare. My experience has been with most yoga, Pilates, dance, movement instructors, and martial arts too, is that they learn the technique. They understand what it's supposed to look like. And if you're doing something that doesn't look like it's right, they just simply show you the right way and say, do this. The trouble is that doesn't work for most of us. Just like to be embodied, it doesn't work to coach someone into embodiment. I wish it did, right? True story, with more than one of my teachers, including Carl, I offered to them, I said, I want to be embodied so badly. I want to get out of my head. I want to get the consciousness back in. I want to reconnect to the quantum field and really live my life. And I offered to them, I'm like, I'll sign a waiver and like rent a cabin in the mountains, and you can like literally tie me down and beat me with hoses or whatever you need. Just don't let me out until I'm embodied. It was almost like a forced heroin detox, because that's how badly I wanted to be successful, how badly I wanted to repair my life. I was willing to do almost anything. But all my teachers said something like, Brent, I appreciate your faith in me, and I appreciate your dedication, your willingness to sacrifice. But I'm not going to do that because it won't work. It has to be more gradual. You can't just tie someone down and beat them with a rubber hose to force them to embody. That would probably create more trauma and squeeze out more consciousness, squeeze more toothpaste out of the tube. If you want to take the next step, it's pretty simple. I have a free spiritual power quiz on my website. If you haven't done already, go check it out. URL's right there on the screen. Not only will you discover your personal power, but I'm going to give you an invitation to a live experience. And that's critical, because this advanced technology, this third generation work, the movement, the quantum field work, can't really be taught through books and manuals and videos. It has to be done live. It's very similar to martial arts. My introduction to spirituality was actually through martial arts. When I was in college, my martial arts practice kept me sane in the craziness of MIT. It was a real pressure cooker. And I studied Taekwondo, and then I got into Aikido, and I studied different styles of Kung Fu and Jiu-Jitsu and Nei Kung and all these different things. And that was kind of my introduction to spirituality. Here's what I found. It's pretty simple. As much as you may want to, you cannot learn karate from a book. You can try, right? You can go read 7 books on karate and practice on your own, and after 6 months, a year or two, you'll be doing something that kind of looks like karate. But what happens if you go pick a fight with a bully? You're going to get your butt whooped. Why? You just can't learn karate from a book. And it can actually be a little dangerous, because if you read a bunch of books on karate and think you're doing karate, but you're not, that could cause a big problem. You might get into a fight or stand up to a bully thinking you know how to defend yourself, but you don't. So that's the reason I'm going to give as much as I can here in these videos without putting you in danger, because there is a danger to get embodied the wrong way. There is a dark side to this. One of the other students of my late mentor, my mentor warned me about him. He said, Brent, stay away from this guy. He's taking this energy and he's using it to manipulate people. And me being young and idealistic and stupid, I didn't listen to him. And I went and worked with this guy. Long story short, I worked with him for one day. He convinced me to pay him $12,000 for this crappy website that did nothing for me. So he used the energy to manipulate me and harm me. That's why I'm going to give you as much as I can within reason on these videos, but I do have to draw a line. Because if I teach you things that you're not learning right, it could harm you or someone else, because this is really powerful stuff, folks. This is no joke. I also have to ensure there's a foundation of ethics and morality. And I'm not saying you don't have that. Obviously, I don't know you, right? You're out there on the internet. I'm here in my office. But I need to get to know you a little bit before I show you the most advanced stuff, simply because there's too much potential for harm. For the same reason that you can go buy a butter knife at the store and they're not going to ask for ID. A child can buy a butter knife. But if you want to buy an assault rifle, that's a different deal, or at least it should be, right? It's much more dangerous. I remember when I was in college, I was really into martial arts. I was studying with a master of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. and he had showed me what's called the rear naked choke. And if you watching that are into MMA, one of the first things you learn in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Long story short, I was showing my buddy Alan, who when we were both like 21, 22, how to do the choke, and we were goofing around, and it was cool. What I didn't realize was Alan, well, I knew that he was there, but Alan's cousin, who was 16, was hanging out with us. And he was watching me, and he learned the choke from me playing with Alan. After he went home and went back to his high school and choked a kid unconscious at lunchtime. And he got suspended for a week and was very nearly expelled and came a hair's breadth from having criminal charges filed against him. So the point is, this is really powerful stuff. And you want to be careful who you teach it to. Because if you teach it to someone that's not ready, they could harm themselves. They could harm others. In martial arts, they used to call this Greenbelt Syndrome. What does that mean? In many arts, you start off as a white belt, right? And you train for 3 or 6 months, you get a yellow belt, and so on. You get your green belt, at least in the system I started in, after you've trained for about a year, year and a half. And they say a green belt, that's when you're at your most dangerous to others and yourself, because you think you're a badass, but you're not. You can break some boards, you can hit the bag, you can win some tournaments. But please don't go pick on the bully, right? You're not ready for a real fight. You're just going to hurt yourself or hurt someone else. So I just want to be a little cautious because this is so powerful. But I am going to be revealing to you in later videos in this series and show you some of these movements because I do want you to get started. Just remember, you can't learn this entirely from a book or a video in the same way you cannot master the guitar or learn karate entirely from a book or a video. But I'm hoping this will get you started because this is, again, the number one most important thing to have a successful life. We got to get the toothpaste back in the tube. We got to get the consciousness back into your body to reconnect you to the quantum field. It's luck, it's presence, it's charisma, it's life breaking your way. And wouldn't you like to have not just a little more of that, but a lot more of that? I know I would. That's all I got to say for today. So Brent Michael Phillips here signing off, and I hope to see you again very soon in my next video or maybe at one of my online events. Until then, take care and namaste.